A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with us on the program today. We're going to be talking with Paul Valone from Grassroots, North Carolina, about a couple of things going on in that state. Tomorrow, we've got a meeting where the board that's in charge of putting the rules together for firearm trainers in North Carolina we'll be hearing from a host of instructors about these proposed changes. You've got, these reports that have to be written 30 days ahead of any class, alerting the state to attendees, and you need to do another report after the class was held, telling the state who showed up. There are all kinds of really, really onerous provisions in this proposed rule change, which, by the way, was sort of foisted on these instructors with the idea that, these rules are changing come October, even though a vote had not been held yet. So we're going to be talking with Paul Valone about that, as well as an update on a very important court case making its way through the legal system there in North Carolina. Before we get to that conversation, however, Biden's America, it's crushing us. You've got companies laying off tens of thousands of workers, one after the other. Americans working two jobs just to get by. Inflation pushing hardworking families to the brink. Just look at the price of lunch meat next time you go to the grocery store, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And a digital dollar could be coming down the pipeline to completely destroy our way of life. The truth is, you need a plan. You know it, and I know it. And that is why you should call Goldco. So you can diversify your savings and investments with gold and silver before things get worse. They're a 6-time Inc. 5000 winner, 2022 Company of the Year, with thousands of 5-star reviews. And they've helped people like you and me place over $1 billion in gold and silver. They're offering up to $10,000 in free silver while supplies last. And if you call them today, qualified callers will get a free Ronald Reagan half-ounce silver coin. So don't wait. Call Goldco at 855-412-3806 today. That's 855-412-3806. All right, so let's kick off the conversation with Paul Valone of Grassroots, North Carolina, about, again, this upcoming meeting on Wednesday in Raleigh. Hopefully, if you are a firearms instructor in the state of North Carolina, you have made plans to attend, as well as, again, this update on a lawsuit out of Mecklenburg County. Take a look and a listen. Paul, thanks so much for coming on the program. It's great talking with you today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, sir.
Absolutely. So we've got some good news out of Mecklenburg County, right?
Well, it's good. It's mixed news. Trending toward good, I guess would be the way to put it.
Okay.
We had our hearing for a preliminary injunction on our part, and on the sheriff's part he had a motion to dismiss. The judge did not grant the motion to dismiss. They did not grant our preliminary injunction either, but they allowed us to go forward with at least one part of the lawsuit. Essentially, we're suing on two grounds, Second Amendment grounds, one of which is based on the Bruin decision that came out recently. And essentially, we're saying that the statute which allows the sheriff this much latitude in seeking mental health checks is unconstitutional on its face because it can be so easily abused. And we're also saying it's unconstitutional as applied to us, the plaintiffs, because McFadden is doing his dead level best to obstruct concealed handgun permits and delay them in some cases for more than a year. It appears that the as applied portion will go through. The judge was apparently less impressed with the facial argument, if you will. But the good news is we will be moving on to discovery, and we are very much looking forward to finding out exactly how Sheriff McFadden has been obstructing concealed handgun permits.
Yeah, and remind folks, how long has this been going on in Mecklenburg County?
Well, this has been whack-a-mole. Because we sued him once when we still had our pistol purchase permit system before we got it repealed, because he was delaying both the purchase permits and concealed handgun permits, and we got him under a consent order to comply with the law and issue purchase permits within 14 days and concealed handgun permits within 45 days. But then he found a new way to delay permits by essentially flooding the local Veterans Administration with records requests for people who never even served in the military, which of course the VA has no obligation to do anything for these people. So that flooded VA is now responsible for delays of a year or more. And by the way, we should note that out of 100 counties, only McFadden, the other 99 counties do not submit all records requests to the VA. They only submit them for people who actually served in the military. So McFadden is the outlier.
Did that come into play in terms of the judge dismissing the facial challenge as opposed to the applied challenge? Because I don't know if that was the case, but it seems to me like if this is the only county where this is happening, that the judge may say, well, maybe the problem is not the law, maybe the problem is with the sheriff himself.
I kind of get that impression, yes. So, but in any case, we will be moving forward with the as applied challenge to this, and hopefully we will wind up with a decision that will actually require this sheriff to obey the same law that the other 99 sheriffs are doing.
Yeah, and things have not gotten any better. I mean, even with this lawsuit underway, you still have folks who are stuck in this limbo for months, if not even a year or longer here, waiting for their carry permits.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I just had someone contact us via Facebook who applied in November. So we're now working on, 10 months for them. So, yeah, so something is supposed to be issued within 45 days. So.
Yeah, this is crazy. And again, I mean, the Bruin decision talked about how shall issue systems are presumptively constitutional, but they can be abused, right? And one of the things that they talked about were these lengthy wait times. If the statute requires that these things are supposed to be handed out within 45 days of an application, I understand that Sheriff McFadden says, no. That 45-day window starts as soon as I get back all of the records that I've requested, even those records don't exist. 45 days stretching into 10 months, I would think that will be something that, if not this particular judge, that the legal system in general would be very interested in taking on here, because a right delayed is a right denied. And do we have any idea how many folks are stuck in this limbo at this point?
At one point, it had been 75,000, but at this
Good
point,
Lord.
that he's been whittling that down, presumably to try and moot the case, which it does not do, but that's all right. But his intent, I guess, is to whittle it down such that the abuses aren't quite as obvious to the judge.
All right. Well, so that's what's going on in Mecklenburg County. But there's another issue that is impacting gun owners across the state of North Carolina, and that's these new regulations that this state board is trying to ram into effect here. In fact, they said that these rules were going into effect before a vote was even held. Tomorrow, there's a public meeting in Raleigh, North Carolina, to talk about these rules and what they would mean. Can you talk about, just remind folks, what are these onerous regulations that are probably going to be subjected to firearms trainers in the state of North Carolina?
Well, understand that Josh Stein has taken a page from the playbook of Joe Biden. He's using an administrative agency and rulemaking to harass gun owners and, in this case, concealed handgun instructors, where he knows that he can't do anything legislatively. So he's trying to do an end run around the legislative process, which, of course, is a violation of the Constitution. But that's a conversation for another day. So what he's doing in this case is Josh Stein and his Department of Justice, North Carolina Department of Justice, is using the Criminal Justice Training Standards Division to apply new regulations for concealed handgun instructors. Under their proposal, which you correctly said they didn't publish as a proposal, they published it as a fait accompli that was going to take effect on October 1st, which is in violation of the Rulemaking Commission standards for allowing public comment before you promulgate a rule. But in any case, their proposal is to require concealed handgun instructors to give 30 days notice for any class, listing the number of students they plan to have in the class, where it will be held, and other details. Now, we both know that in many cases, instructors have impromptu classes with students that might be the following day. We all meet at the range and two other guys say, hey, I want my concealed carry. All right, let's go do it tomorrow at the range, which of course would no longer be possible. Then they also required that the instructors keep auditable rosters of students. Now, understand that first off, the state of North Carolina has a perfectly good list of concealed handgun permit holders. All right, they have that in a database. So they know who has permits. Many of the people who take concealed handgun classes do so for educational purposes, not with the intention of getting a permit. And so consequently, what Stein is proposing to keep is a gun owner registry, basically people who have taken classes on education with respect to firearms. And if that doesn't suppress the number of people taking these classes, I don't know what will. And consequently, we'll see fewer permits, we'll see fewer people that are trained, we will see a detriment to public safety, and for that matter, a detriment to crimes deterred, as fewer and fewer people take this system. Now, there was a meeting yesterday that our people attended, and they're making noises about some minor concessions, but quite frankly, it's too little, too late. They try to maintain that this notice they put out on June 3rd to instructors claiming that these standards would take effect October 1st. Oh, that's all just a big mistake. We're terribly sorry. We didn't mean that, which of course is a crock, because what it means is they got busted. They got their hand in the cookie jar, and now they're having to backpedal. Well, they've not backpedaled enough. Tomorrow we're going to pack that meeting and let the voices be heard. And if they don't comply, then the next process will be legislative review. We only need 10, count them, 10 objections to the new rule. And that forces for starters, it stalls it for 6 months and requires the General Assembly to take a look at it and review the regulation themselves. And of course, we have a Republican supermajority in both chambers of the General Assembly, so I have every expectation that would go swimmingly well.
Okay. Well, that is good news that there is a legislative backstop here to try to stop these abuses, at least in the short term. I'm curious, Paul, what's the penalty? Let's say, you've got a firearms instructor in North Carolina. And as you say, one of these impromptu events takes place. A couple of guys show up and say, hey, I'm thinking about getting my concealed carry license. All right, well, let's go to the range tomorrow. What would happen to the instructor in that case? Would that be cause to lose their credentials or their license if they put on a concealed carry course and did not give the state the required 30-day notice?
That would be my expectation, yes, that they would revoke the instructor's credentials. And that would be my expectation. And
what's the ostensible purpose for this? What is Stein or his lackeys claiming that this is so desperately needed?
In their justification after we nailed them and they started backpedaling, they claim they pulled out 4 cases. Now, understand, we probably have most of 600,000 concealed handgun permits in the state of North Carolina right now. And they pulled out 4 cases where allegedly, and those were the words they used, allegedly and reportedly, instructors had abused the process. Okay, by not giving the requisite 8 hours of instructions, by doing it virtual online instead of in person, and a few other things. But it was very obvious that from these meager 4 cases, they didn't even bother to investigate those because they didn't even put it in solid terms. As I say, allegedly, reportedly. So as far as I'm concerned, they have nothing to stand on.
Yeah, and I honestly, I'm failing. I mean, let's just assume, for the sake of argument, that those 4 cases, instructors, took shortcuts, right? They cut corners. Again, what does requiring every instructor in the state to provide, 30 days advance notice do to rectify bad behavior on the part of any firearm instructors out there?
Well, this is a standard leftist tactic. Instead of punishing the few people who abuse the system, we make it harder and punish everybody, all the responsible instructors that are doing it right, and they're going to have additional burdens placed on them. That's standard leftism.
Yeah. And I think the last time you and I spoke too, we talked about just even beyond the chilling effect that this will have on instructors being able to put on courses and the chilling effect on attendees. A lot of firearms instructors, this is not their full-time job. This is something that they do on the weekends, maybe, a couple of weekends a month. And you're talking about, just the sheer amount of additional paperwork that is going to be required of these instructors. Again, that's now hours upon hours of additional work that they have to do. Either they're going to start charging more for these carry courses, right, so that they can make up that loss of revenue, or again, it's going to become financially unviable for them to continue doing what they're doing on a part-time basis. And so, as you say, they'll stop doing these courses entirely, right? Which will lead to fewer opportunities to get that training and education that Stein believes, supposedly, gun owners should have to have in order to carry a firearm.
Well, that's exactly right. As a matter of fact, I talked to a lot of instructors over the last several weeks about this, and several have said that if these regulations go through, they'll just stop instructing. They'll give up their certificates and just give it up altogether. And so, yeah, the net result will be that it will be harder to get the training for a concealed handgun permit, which, of course, was when the Democrat-led chamber first passed concealed carry back in 1995, they tried to put in a provision where only instructors certified by the North Carolina Criminal Justice Education Training Standards Commission could give the instruction required. And of course, there are only a handful of those. So we were able to broaden it out to include other types of instructors. But the ability to restrict training is the ability to restrict permits. And that's exactly what they have in mind.
You know, you talk about the legislative backstop where you need 10 lawmakers to say, all right, hang on a second, we're calling a timeout on these rules. I'm curious, have you spoken to any legislators about what's going on here from Stein's office? And do you think this helps make the case for constitutional carry in North Carolina?
Oh, it absolutely makes the case for constitutional carry because, of course, you can't have bureaucrats obstructing your ability to protect yourself under constitutional carry. There is absolutely no doubt that this is a stunning argument for it. And as we continue pushing for House Bill 189, I will be using that argument. But as far as speaking to legislators, oh, yes. As a matter of fact, Representative Keith Kidwell has said he would be happy to tackle this in the General Assembly. All we need are 10 letters of objection from people between, I believe it's 2 days after the final rule is promulgated until September 21st, but I could be wrong about that. But within that period of time, we only need 10. I'm sure we will have hundreds, if not thousands, of letters objecting to these regulations. And if we need to address it legislatively, we'll do it.
All right. So if folks want to attend tomorrow's meeting and rally, do you know the time and place where they can show up?
Well, best bet is to go to our page, grnc.org, and we'll have it right on the homepage, grnc.org, and we'll have all the information up there. But it's 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning, and it's at a community college. I've forgotten which one it is.
Okay.
But all the information is at grnc.org.
Okay. Well, I was hoping to make the relatively short 3-hour drive from Farmville, but I'm not going to be able to do that tomorrow, so I won't be able to see you in person. But if you don't mind, I'm going to be reaching out via email and hopefully get an after-action report from you tomorrow. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Yep.
Excellent. Paul, listen, thank you so much for everything you do. What's your message for North Carolina gun owners right now with all of these attacks going on against their right to carry? What should gun owners in the state be doing to protect their rights?
Well, for starters, don't compromise. As we often tell people, compromise, as our opposition defines it, is a process under which you lose less than under their original proposal, but you still lose. We are a no-compromise gun rights organization, and we want people to do exactly that and not compromise on their freedoms.
Excellent. Paul Valone, Grassroots North Carolina, thank you so much for your time today. Best of luck tomorrow, and give him hell, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Many thanks to Paul Valone for joining us on the program, and we will have more on Wednesday's meeting coming up on bearingarms.com. Now let's turn our attention to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and a very disturbing recidivist report out of Minnesota. A Wilmar man sentenced to probation in beating and robbery case. Now, this was actually a case of domestic violence that led to an assault and a robbery. But 21-year-old Farhan Muhammad Abdi of Wilmar, convicted, actually took an Alford plea to a charge of domestic assault and received a 90-day jail sentence. He got credit for 9 days served, and the 81 days left in his sentence were stayed for 1 year, during which time Abdi will be on supervised probation. If he keeps his nose out of trouble, then he's free to go after serving just 9 days for this crime. Now, an Alford plea is entered when a defendant maintains their innocence but acknowledges the prosecutors have enough evidence for a judge or jury to enter a guilty verdict. They are treated as any other guilty plea at sentence, although, again, Aldi maintains his innocence. In this particular case, Abdi went to a residence in Spicer, Minnesota, more than 2 years ago, July 25th, 2021, possibly the early morning hours of July 26th. An adult woman met Abdi at the driveway of the home. She thought that he had received a trespassing notice and was not allowed on the property. Abdi was upset, allegedly threw the woman to the ground, and began beating her. The woman said that when she was on the ground, Abdi choked her to the point that she couldn't breathe. She alleged that Abdi told her, lay there in the driveway for another 5 minutes so he could run her over. Of According to the complaint, Abdi then took a debit card from her pocket after assaulting the woman. Woman told police she went to the courthouse with a family member the early afternoon the next day to obtain an order of protection. While they were on their way to the courthouse, they ran into Abdi. The woman confronted him about the debit card. Abdi said he didn't know anything about it, got upset again, and allegedly threw her to the ground and choked her, according to the complaint. Woman said at one point she called 911 but did not go through with the call after Abdi told her to, quote, see what happens. He then got up, kicked the family member's car before leaving. Law enforcement met with Abdi at his home in Wilmar. Abdi said he saw the adult female attacking his car. There was a verbal confrontation. Then he kicked the family member's car in retaliation. When asked about the woman's debit card, he said that she had left it in his vehicle. He denied any physical assault had happened, said that the bruising and black eyes the woman suffered were from an altercation with a member of her family. He was then placed under arrest for domestic assault. The complaint states that when before a deputy handcuffed Abdi as they were patting him down, they had him empty his pockets, and in one of the pockets was the woman's debit card. Yeah, so there you go. Abdi again maintains his innocence. The evidence overwhelmingly points in the opposite direction. And again, for the purposes of the court, an offered plea is the same as a guilty plea. So here again, the allegations are Mr. Abdi assaulted this woman twice in 2 days, leaving her with blackened eyes and bruises. And a court gave him 9 days in jail and probation. And again, if long as he stays out of trouble for another year, or at least the court says he stays out of trouble for another year, then all of this will be wiped off of Mr. Abdi's record. You know, Minnesota Democrats going after law-abiding, lawful gun owners this year, insisting that nothing wrong with the criminal justice system. Instead, what they need are just a few more gun control laws in the books to take care of things. I would say that sentences like Mr. Abdi show that the criminal justice system is, if not in Minnesota, completely broken, in dire need of repair. Criminalizing the right to keep and bear arms, not only an affront to our constitutional rights, but taking us in the wrong direction in terms of public safety as well. Again, if you're a law-abiding gun owner, more rules for you. If you're a domestic abuser, on the other hand, slap on the wrist. Won't even hurt as much as the injuries you likely inflicted. Now, today's armed citizen story from California, Bakersfield, California. Headline, ring cam catches would-be robber moments before alleged home invasion. Now, I'm not going to share the ring video with you. The video doesn't actually show a whole lot, but the armed citizen story itself is pretty compelling, and one that did not get really even a lot of local attention in Bakersfield, California, much less national attention. This happened a couple of days ago, August the 4th. It's supposed to be a normal Friday evening, according to KERO, for a Bakersfield homeowner, Quincy Sloan. But he's out on a date with his wife, and he gets a notification from his Ring app. He said, our dogs came. My son opens the door. Our dog, Ebony, runs out, makes contact with him, and chases him to the next door neighbor. Him being a man ringing the doorbell of the home there. According to the Bakersfield Police Department, the man identified as 38-year-old Tanari Stalker, who was armed with a gun. Sloan says after Stalker ran to his neighbor's home, he broke into the yard by the side gate and then broke into a door leading into the house itself. Sloan says at this point he's broken in. They hear it. They're like, what is that noise? The son and the wife start coming towards to go see what it is. You can hear on the video a voice saying, get out. Shortly after that, you hear the sound of shots fired. Sloan says the shots came from Stalker, the intruder in that home. Sloan says his neighbor now knows the guy's business. He goes and tells his son to call 911. His son is on the phone with 911 while this exchange happens. The Bakersfield Police Department says when Stalker entered the home, a resident inside fired their lawfully owned firearm at him. According to the neighbor, shortly after that armed citizen shot back at Stalker, the armed citizen guided his family outside of their backyard. Sloan says he runs with his family towards the back of the house on the south end. Then the perpetrator runs in the house, runs upstairs, and then jumps out the second-story window. And that's when police officers arrived. According to police, Stalker provided medical aid, then transported to a local hospital where he's currently listed in critical condition. Sloan, the neighbor, says the armed citizen involved in the shooting, staying out of town with his family because of the incident. Sloan says ultimately he believes his neighbor did the right thing. Quote, he protected his family. That was the only thing on his mind. We know that this person had evil intent. His intent was to just go in and take something. He was going to forcefully take it. As a householder, he responded. And he responded in a way that saved his family and it potentially saved my family because my son, who's special needs, was home by himself. Sloan says the situation has left him feeling uneasy. He's encouraging all Bakersfield residents to purchase a home security system and to consider getting a guard dog. He says we're concerned because we don't know how all this started, who's involved, although he's been addressed. We don't know if this is connected with any other home robberies up and down the street, but it's very unnerving. It is. And Sloan's suggestion for a home security system, not a bad one. Guard dog, I mean, again, that depends on your circumstances, but I would also encourage, and I'm kind of surprised that Mr. Sloan did not, encourage folks to think about becoming a gun owner as well in order to protect themselves from the violent home invasions that are happening with an alarming regularity in the supposedly gun-free paradise, or at least the gun-controlled paradise of California. Finally today, our good deed of the day, in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Man, I hope I'm not butchering this name. A man from Tooele, Utah, who saved a paralyzed woman from drowning in a lake. The woman was apparently belted into her wheelchair when she rolled into Stansbury Lake outside of Tooele, Utah. Kelly Roundtree was playing darts with his daughter at his home by the lake when he heard that cry for help coming from the other side of the lake. So Roundtree jumped in his car, drove around the lake. Others picked up the phone, called 911. Officials say the paralyzed woman had rolled into the lake while she was belted into her motorized wheelchair. Roundtree ended up going into the water, was able to unfasten the seatbelt, held the woman's head above water until officials arrived. Emergency crews were able to get her out of the lake. The Tooele fire official said this is a perfect example of people helping people. And while Kelly's very humble about his role in this, we have no problem calling him a hero. I think that definitely applies. I'm glad that the woman is okay. Hopefully, they're going to be able to get her a new motorized wheelchair. I know those things are not cheap, and I don't know if insurance will cover an incident where you roll into a lake, but hopefully she will not only be recovering physically from what happened, but again, will get back on track in terms of getting all of the equipment that she needs to live her life to the fullest. And again, thankfully, she is here to live her life because of the quick thinking and the fast actions of Kelly Roundtree there in Tooele, Utah. So, Kelly, we thank you, sir, for your very, very good deed. Now, that is unfortunately all the time we've got for you on this edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company, but I do want to thank you for being a part of the program as always. Looking forward to being back with you again tomorrow. Also, on Wednesday, we've got the return of Mr. Ed Morrissey from Hot Air. He has been off the past couple of weeks, but he will be back for our VIP Gold Live Chat coming up Wednesday, 1:30 Eastern. If you want to be a part of that VIP Gold Live Chat, all you have to do, go to bearingarms.com/subscribe, use the promo code GUNRIGHTS, and you get a significant savings on your VIP or VIP Gold membership. As our way of saying thanks for showing your support, we're going to give you exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. News stories and analysis that matter, just like your support. So thank you again. See you back here tomorrow. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.